So today we're going to learn about how to use Maven to set up unit test and integration test. This is a basic introduction. There's many things you can add to it later, which we'll talk about at the end, which will be in a later video. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have a Maven project structure. We're using IntelliJ today because IntelliJ works really well with Maven. You could use Eclipse, you could use VI in the command line, whatever floats your boat. But you can certainly go into Eclipse and create a new project that is a type Maven, and it will generate much of this for you. So we've got our project, and the first thing to look at is the Pom file. So Pom file defines how Maven does everything. There's a link on the developer portal on Maven if you're interested in how Maven works and how the Pom file works. But basically, we've created a project called My Project, which is a very simple project that's going to include locks and keys. And so basically, we've got our generated Pom file from creating the project. We've got our group ID, com.cablelabs.video, and the artifact ID is My Project. And then we're going to add, we need one dependency and one plugin. So the dependency is for JUnit, as you'll see here. We're using version 4.8.1. You can go to the Maven repository on the web and get the latest if you want to use an earlier one, you can use that. Maven doesn't care so much. And then in the build, we need to create a plugin for the Maven failsafe plugin. Now this is the plugin will be used to generate the integration tests at the verify phase of the project. So this is the important key, right? So this is your Maven plugins. Maven failsafe plugin 2.12 is what we're using here. Again, you can go to the Maven repository and get a different version if there's a newer version when you watch this video. And then you need to set your execution goals to be the verify state. And that's after the project has been packaged. This is when you want to test the jar file, right? So it's not a unit test on classes. It's either a jar or a war file or whatever packaging you might be using in your project. So once that's in, you should be ready to go. So we've created in our source main Java, we've created a CableLabs.video package where we have a lock and a My class. The My class has your name, your ID, and a secret. And the secret and the ID are used to create the key. The key is then used to unlock the lock. Right. So it's a fairly simple class, and you can use any kind of classes for this sort of thing. Now in the test directory, we've mimicked the com.cablelabs.video, and I like to separate the integration and the unit test in a separate directory. As it turns out, Maven doesn't care. Maven's smart enough based on the naming convention to find them and run them separately. But first we're going to look at the unit test. So you can put them all at the top level, or you can create this sub-package structure as I have here. So first we're going to look at the My Class test. And My Class test is pretty simple. It's a unit test. So it's going to create a class. It's going to set the ID, set the secret, set the name, and then we're going to assert that the key that's calculated maps to what it should be mapped to, in this case 10. Alright, so that's no biggie. And then the lock test. And all the lock test is going to do is test that the lock itself locks and unlocks correctly. So it won't be using the My Class object to unlock it. We create a new lock with the secret 10. We're going to assert that it's locked. Then we're going to unlock it. Assert that it's unlocked. Relock it. Assert that it's relocked. Then we're going to assert that when we try to unlock it with the wrong key, that it not only does it return false, but it also does not unlock. Right. So that's our two unit tests. Now, Maven lifecycles are predefined for convention. So if you look over here, IntelliJ gives them to us nicely, but you can also run them from the command line. Maven clean, mvm space clean, right? So you could come into a terminal and type nvm clean, and it will run that project, run that lifecycle. So clean cleans out all your object files. Validate, make sure that all of your dependencies work. Compile generates your .class files. And then test is what runs the unit test. Now, each one of these will run the previous test. So when you run test, it will compile, right? It has to pass compile before it passes test, except for clean, and unless you specify clean, it doesn't rerun clean. So in this case, we've run, and let's make this up a little bit bigger so you can see it. We run the test case, and it shows you where it's running the lock test and that it passed. And then it's running the my class test, and it passes. And it tells you, it gives you a summary of all the test cases that run. Now, what it's doing is it's running every class that has the word test at the end of it. Now, you can also, you can define which test you want to run by putting, let's see, lock test. And it will only run the lock test. You can also use wildcards, right? So you could type star.test, and it will in fact run both of the tests because they both meet that that thing. But the convention is that your class will have test in it, and it will get run, right? And you can run. Now, if you want to build your code without running the test, which I don't recommend, that is also possible. So I could run maven.package, which would ordinarily run the test, but if you put -d skip test, then it doesn't run the test, right? So in some cases, if you're working with an unstable build and some of the tests aren't passing, you can get around that. Now, the integration tests don't run at the test lifecycle. They run at the verify lifecycle. So let's look at the integration test. So in the integration test, we're still using JUnit. The difference here is that now we're going to write a test that uses both the lock and key. So I'm going to create my class as we did before. Bear with me. And then I'm going to set my class to have a name, an ID of 2, and a secret of 5. So the key again is going to be 10. Then I'm going to create a lock, and we're going to give that lock the ID of 10. And then we're going to verify that when we unlock the lock with the class calculate key, that it comes back true, and we're going to doubly make sure that the lock is not locked anymore. And so now I'm going to reset the lock, and I'm going to change the secret to 6. So now they should no longer match. And so now I'm going to again attempt to unlock my class with unlock the key with my class, and now it should still be locked. Okay, so what we're doing here that's different than the unit test is we're integrating two classes, right? So this could be as big as you need it to be. You can do integrations of full APIs, you can do integrations of libraries, you can do integrations of groups of classes that interact together. That isn't suitable for a unit test, right? That requires that everything be built and the resources exist before you run this sort of test. So it's a very powerful sort of test. So if you run verify, now you'll notice, and let's point a few things out. First, you'll notice that when verify runs, it also runs a unit test as part of the test lifecycle. The second thing you'll notice is that separately, it's going to run the IT test as test. So you'll see here, my class IT was run. Okay, and everything passed, so we did it right. Now let's go in here and let's make a change so that it tests fails now. Let's see what that looks like. So if we run, now the unit test will still pass as they did. But now we're going to see a failed test, and it's going to tell you what happened. Expected true, but was false, because in fact if you look, our class came back as false because you could not unlock the class. Okay, now the abilities you can do with integration tests are very similar to what you can do with so you can run let's say we run verify and we skip tests. So that's going to run everything up through verify, but no tests are run. It even tells you tests were skipped. You can also run verify, and you can define the test that you want to run. Let's see, it's called my class IT. And it's going to run, now it ran all the tests because the way that we set it up, but it's going to run that guy. Okay, so you can do all the same sorts of things. The difference you'll notice here, I've got it.test instead of just tests. But in general, it's a pretty handy way of doing this. Now, as I said earlier, there's more advanced concepts that you can use with this. For example, in one of our API systems, we use integration tests to actually kick off a local JD server that runs the API locally and allows you to do API calls in the integration test. That's certainly something you couldn't do in a unit test. But in general, that's about it. I appreciate your listening, and I hope you got something good out of it. Till next time.